This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. The Democratic National Convention has wrapped up, and now the Republican lawmakers are preparing for their turn next week. Former Vice President Joe Biden officially accepted the Democratic nomination for president last night. It's Biden's third attempt at the presidency, but his first as the party's nominee. His goal of the night was to convince the American public to try to make Donald Trump a one-term president.
This is our moment. This is our mission. May history be able to say that the end of this chapter of American darkness began here tonight.
In an interview this morning, Vice President Mike Pence said the American people will know what the choice is when the Republican National Convention convenes starting Monday. Take a listen.
The American people are going to have a choice between a president who's rebuilt our military, revived our economy, appointed conservatives to our courts, and stood strong with the men and women of law enforcement, versus Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, overtaken by the radical left, that want higher taxes, socialized medicine, open borders, abortion on demand, and spoke not one word in their entire convention about the violence that's claiming lives in the streets of cities across this country. We're going to lay that choice out.
Joining me now to talk about all things politics is my man, CBN chief political analyst David Brody. So, David, what did you think of Mr. Biden's acceptance speech? What was the main message behind it?
Well, George, look, it was an A+. I mean, he did great. Look, he read a speech off prompter. Let's give him a clap for it. You know, he's kind of become prompter Joe. The question is, he hasn't been great at being ad-lib Joe, and the debates are coming up, George, and so we're going to wait to see how that goes, because that is going to be a cage match between him and President Trump, and there won't be a prompter in the ring. But look, I thought he did really well. I thought it was passionate. I thought he connected, especially on the COVID-19, with the COVID-19 families, because he's gone through tragedy. They've gone through tragedy. I thought he hit all the right notes, but if you notice, it was very light on policy, and that's where the devil is in the details for the Democrats.
In fact, to that very point, David, Peggy Noonan, you know her very well. She wrote an opinion for the Wall Street Journal today, basically making that point that the convention was marked by a sense of grievance, she says, but voters need to know what they are going to do. The whole, as you said, the details are in the policy aspects, right?
Well, that's right. And he also talked about light versus darkness. And as it relates to policy and details, you know, first of all, he's trying to make the case that Trump represents darkness and everything he's talking about is darkness, and Biden represents the light, if you will. Here's the problem. When it comes to policy, there's quite a bit of darkness, according to the Trump administration, on the Biden-type policies, the far left in this country, everything from defund the police to late-term abortion to chaos and riots in the streets of Portland and Seattle and other places, and throwing Christopher Columbus into the harbor, etc., and Frederick Douglass, oh, by the way, too. And so the case was going to be made as we move to the Republicans next week that, look, if this is their version of light, you know, they don't want any part of it. Americans shouldn't want any part of that. And so I think that light versus darkness angle that Biden wants to concentrate on might come back and backfire on them.
Yeah, and the president made that very point today in Arlington as well. David, you cover all aspects, faith as well. Faith did take a front seat at the convention last night. Talk about that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was striking, George, to see so much faith talk. Remember, Hillary Clinton did none of this in 2016, and she only got 16% of the white evangelical vote. Joe Biden's campaign hoping to capitalize and get a percentage or two more. If they do that, they have a chance to win. Look, they need white Catholics. Let's just narrow it down. They need white Catholics in Rust Belt states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio. That's the ball game. If they can win there and take those states away from Trump, Trump's a one-term president, and Joe Biden's the next president of the United States. Yeah, that's simple, George.
Real quickly, 30 seconds. What are you expecting at next week's Republican National Convention?
Well, won't be as stale as the Democrats, and I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, it was virtual, but Donald Trump is going to go live, and it's going to be big, and there'll be a lot more, like I said, live elements to it, and definitely some surprises. So get ready. I mean, you know, he is a showman after all. He is the greatest showman, not Hugh Jackman, but he's the greatest showman. Okay. And I think we're going to see a lot of that next week.
And you will be back next week to talk about that. David, as always, thank you. Yep, have a great weekend, buddy. And be sure to tune in to Faith Nation this evening for more on this story and the latest from our nation's capital. From extreme heat to wildfires, California, boy oh boy, they are in a state of emergency. CBN's Paul Strand has the latest.
The sizzling heat wave goes on out west, depleting firefighting resources across some 15 states, with dozens of those blazes in California alone. More than 10,000 firefighters are working those California fires, but it's just not enough. So some are doing 72-hour shifts.
There's not enough people to do the job, and the fire is crazy. It's like trying to keep kittens in a basket.
Some of these fires were allowed to smolder because, frankly, we didn't have the resources to get out there and put eyes on them because we were busy battling other fires.
That means people like Vacaville's Brian Brannigan have lost everything on their property.
Normally I will see CAL FIRE trucks bumper to bumper rolling down the road anytime there's a fire up the road towards Berryessa. This time there wasn't one fire truck to be seen.
The lack of resources leaves it up to some local residents to save what they can on their own.
We've been fighting the fire back there for 2 days with tractors, and we saved some homes and such back there.
Just trying to make some fire breaks, do what we can, but with this wind and the hot spots, shoot, this could all be for nothing. It's just could be an exercise in futility because, you know, all it takes is one spark to jump. I mean, that house wasn't burning a half an hour ago. Neither was that.
Critics, President Trump among them, say California has let thousands of acres go untended, leaving some 150 million dead or dying trees ready to easily burn.
Big Basin hasn't burned, you know, like that in a long time. There's obviously a ton of fuel up there.
Evacuees escaping the fires are facing a whole new kind of threat when they get to emergency shelters. They're worried about getting the coronavirus as those places fill up. So some are sleeping in their vehicles outside the shelters. Paul Strand, CBN News.
Thank you, Paul. Now to the latest with the COVID-19 pandemic. We are seeing a COVID crackdown at colleges around the country where students are returning this week to campuses and they are ignoring health warnings. At least 22 states are reporting outbreaks on college campuses, with NC State becoming the latest university moving to online instruction, blaming off-campus parties for COVID clusters, and Purdue University suspending 36 students for a party Wednesday night. Meanwhile, the University of Kansas saying 87 students have tested positive, linking a large majority of those cases to fraternities and sororities. Dr. Deborah Birx of the Coronavirus Task Force is urging universities to beef up their testing capabilities to process thousands of samples in a single day.
Each university not only has to do entrance testing, but what we talk to every university about is being able to do surge testing.
COVID-19 cases in the U.S., by the way, are nearing 5.6 million with nearly 174,000 deaths. We move overseas now, where the Israeli Air Force made history when it flew over Germany for the very first time. It is a reminder of how far the Jewish people have come just 75 years after the Holocaust. My colleague Julie Stahl has that story from Jerusalem.
For the first time ever, the Israeli Air Force and German Luftwaffe flew together in the German skies. The moment the Israeli Air Force planes crossed into German airspace was captured in this tweet.
On behalf of the German Air Force, it is an honor for me to welcome the Israeli Air Force entering German airspace.
Well, my friend, I am proud to lead our first deployment to Germany. It's a testimony to our strong ties and mutual commitment.
The Israeli planes were in Germany for a joint training exercise. Together, they flew over Dachau, the former Nazi concentration camp.
תוך זיכרון חשכת העבר, נושאים בכנפינו מחויבות משותפת לעתיד עדי עד. Flying together above the valley of darkness, making room for only light ahead, as we vow, never again.
Those words were echoed on the ground by the German Air Force commanding officer.
We show the whole world, never again. It should happen what happened 75 years ago in our darkest spot of history. And we show the world that it is more than just a cooperation, it is a friendship.
This holds a national meaning with historic connections. We will never forget. We will always remember, but we know that we have to build our future.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, we take a look at a major weather event as two tropical storms come barreling toward the U.S. But before we go to the break, here's a look at what's trending on CBN News Channel.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back, folks. You're watching the CBN News Channel. Two potentially historic weather systems forming in the Atlantic. It'd be the first time since the Great Depression, forecasters say, where two potential hurricanes could make landfall at the same time. Meteorologists take a look at that, where they're watching the two tropical depressions closely as they are building in the Atlantic. Right now, they say if it stays on track, they could move into the Gulf of Mexico and make landfall somewhere between Texas and Florida. Somebody who is going to be watching these two tropical storms very closely is my man, the Weather Bell's chief forecaster, Joe Bastardi, who's joining us in his car. Hey, Joe, give us the latest on these two storm systems. What can we expect?
Well, let's put it in perspective. September 4th, 1933, two major hurricanes hit the U.S. coast within 24 hours of each other. September 4th, the Treasure Coast of Florida was hit by a major hurricane, and some 18 to 24 hours later, South Padre Island. It was a double shot, and this, even though this has got a good chance to be two landfalling tropical cyclones, and for those of you who follow us at Weather Bell, you saw our impact forecast saying these things were going to try to intensify coming to land. Well, the fact of the matter is, there is that possibility. One of the things, if you notice, these things are not intensifying very fast out in the Atlantic. They're waiting till they get closer to land, and that's because of a large-scale pattern, folks, in the Northern Hemisphere right now, that even though you hear, well, the conditions are favorable, there's no shear or whatever, there's large-scale sinking going on in this part of the Atlantic basin. In other words, the air is sort of descending. However, the big problem is, as you get closer to the U.S. coast this year in these patterns, the air starts going up. And that's why you've seen Hannah, Isaias, Faye, Bertha, Arthur, Cristobal, all increasing as they hit the coastline. And those are the ones that could get real tricky.
Yeah.
Now, I believe both of these are going to try to hit as a hurricane. I think that the front runner, 14, is still not named yet, is probably going to hit toward the Texas Gulf Coast. I got one going west of New Orleans, the other trying to come east of New Orleans.
Yeah.
And the intensity is questionable.
Yeah. Can you talk real quickly, what kind of double trouble could we expect in terms of damage if it does make landfall as hurricane?
Well, as hurricanes, comparable perhaps, for instance, Isaias, because of where it hit, caused $4 billion damage, but Hannah did not cause as much damage. So we've got to see the intensity. If you drive a storm into Kennedy County, for instance, in Texas, where there are more cows than people, there's not as much damage. But if you take it into Galveston, or you take another one into Pensacola, Mobile, New Orleans, we all know what could happen, even with minimal hurricanes. So I'll probably be talking to you on Monday again. How's that?
That sounds terrific. Hey, wherever you're going, be safe. Have a great weekend, okay?
All right. God bless you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. You're most welcome. After the break, folks, what happened, when a little boy's plea to be adopted exploded online. One organization says his story is shedding light on an important issue in our country. That story in a moment.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to the broadcast. The heartwarming story of an Oklahoma boy looking for a family is garnering national attention. The 9-year-old boy named Jordan received 5,000 adoption inquiries just 12 hours after an interview of him pleading for a family went viral. His story has brought foster care and adoption into the spotlight. Our Mark Martin spoke with Kimberly from Bethany Christian Services for more on issues facing orphan children.
Kimberly, this story is so moving. Do you think the amount of applications the little boy received shows that more people in America have a heart for adoption and fostering than they may have realized?
You know what? I 100% agree with you on that, Mark. Jordan's story is so powerful and impactful in that he is speaking in so many ways on behalf of over 100,000 children like him, children who, through no fault of their own, can never return to their biological families and are in need of a desperate need of an adoptive family. And families are coming forward, which is so powerful and so inspiring.
It really is. 5,000 people want him. It's just amazing, but only one family will get him. What kind of impact would it have on the foster care system in our country if the other 4,999 people that won't become Jordan's forever home instead decided to foster or adopt another child?
You know, Mark, I have to believe that one of those families will move forward through the training and assessment process, and they will be a great fit for Jordan, which will be a blessing and success in itself. But even if a small portion of those families actually move through the process, that could mean the difference between the security of having a place to call home and the unfortunate uncertainty about their future that so many of our children are facing.
Jordan's story went viral, but we know, like you said, there are thousands of other children in his same position. If families are not able to adopt, what can you tell us about the positive impact of foster homes and foster care for children in Jordan's position?
I'm telling you, there's such a great need for foster families right now, especially in the wake of COVID, because of the expected increase in the number of children that will possibly come into foster care because of homelessness, a loss of income, substance abuse, and domestic violence. We are encouraged to see that in spite of the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, people are willing to open up their hearts and their homes to children in need. We desperately need families, and we definitely need you now.
What would be your advice or words of encouragement to families considering adoption or foster care? People at home flipping through the channels, they stop, they see this interview, and they're on the fence. What would be your words of advice and encouragement?
Take that next step. You're on the fence, you see stories like Jordan. There's so many children like him. He's speaking on behalf of those children. Over 100,000 children are available for adoption. They need you, and they need you now. If you take that next step, you can call us at 1-800-BETHANY or go to www.bethany.org. The process right now is easier than ever because of COVID. I like to call that a COVID win, because we're now doing things virtually. So you can meet us in this home, the security of your home, and get the process going now. There's no better time than now.
Amen. All right. Great advice. Great words of encouragement. Kimberly OFFUTT with Bethany Christian Services. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for your time and your words of inspiration.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Up next, celebrating a milestone of CBN News coverage in the Middle East and understanding the times we live in from a biblical perspective.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
And welcome back to the broadcast. Our CBN News Bureau in Jerusalem is celebrating its 20th anniversary this week. As Chris Mitchell reports, the Bureau has grown from its small, humble beginnings to a global outreach. Take a look.
On August 17, 2000, I arrived in Israel with my wife Liz and our 3 children, Philip, Kathleen, and Grace, to open the CBN News Bureau. We had no idea what would begin just 5 weeks later.
The bombing comes one day before the International Court of The Hague.
A 4-year-long campaign of Palestinian terror attacks and suicide bombings, known as the Second Intifada, rocked Israel. It was a chaotic time to not only raise a family, but to begin a business. It started in a one-room office, a small staff, and a mandate to cover the news from a biblical perspective, without a bias against Israel or the Jewish people. During the ensuing years, we've been able to cover firsthand how Jerusalem and the Middle East remains the epicenter for world-shaking events.
Our Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell, joins us now from Gaza Strip.
In 2005, we brought you the wrenching Israeli pullout from the Gaza Strip as thousands of Israelis were evicted. The next year, Pat Robertson joined us on the front lines of the 2006 Second Lebanon War and prayed for Israel live on the 700 Club.
And we pray for Israel. We pray for these who are engaged in fighting. We pray for those who are in leadership that they might have wisdom.
Minutes later, he was interviewed while HEZBOLLAH rockets struck the hills behind us. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, we sped to Tahrir Square in Cairo, where thousands gathered to protest the government of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. CBN News covered the rise of ISIS and its reign of terror, from the bombed-out city of Sinjar to a mass grave of Yazidis. We sat down and felt the anguish of a woman who just lost her son, and saw the ruins of the Islamic State after its demise in the city of Mosul. We spent time with the Kurdish Peshmerga, the brave men and women spearheading the battle against ISIS. We met face-to-face with persecuted Christians and told the world about the awful rise of Christian persecution throughout the Middle East. Many times, CBN News went to Israel's southern border when wars broke out with Hamas, and went underground on Israel's northern border to get a rare look at a HEZBOLLAH terror tunnel. And we've been on the scene during the Trump years and covered the historic decision by President Trump to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And we saw the opening of Saudi Arabia to the world.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell.
In 2011, CBN News began the award-winning program Jerusalem Dateline. Now entering our 10th season, it's broadcast around the world and translated into multiple languages.
Выпуск нашей программы. Я Крис Митчелл.
Over 20 years, our viewers have seen prophetic stories of the Jewish people returning to the land of Israel, and the remarkable archaeological finds that prove the Bible, like the seal of King Hezekiah and the pilgrimage road in the city of David where Jesus walked. Through it all, the Bureau sees itself like the book of Isaiah says, to be watchmen on the walls of Jerusalem, and also like the tribe of Issachar, to understand the times.
Well, we wish our folks there a happy anniversary from Jerusalem, from Virginia Beach to Jerusalem. You can get all the news from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline tonight, as always, right here on the CBN News Channel at 9:30 Eastern. Well, folks, from all of us here from the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network right here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, we wish you all a fantastic rest of the Friday, a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there. From all of us here, goodbye and God bless.